Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us and this night where we can gather together and to study your word. We thank you, Father, that you've given us your word and directions and things to know and understand. And as we get into your word tonight, be in the conversation, be everything that's said and done. We thank you that we can call upon your name, that you do hear and answer prayer. And so we just commit all this into your hands and ask you, Lord, to move among us, minister to us as only you can. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Chapter 48. Did you ever think we'd get here, huh? Everybody got an outline? Make sure we covered? Okay. Chapter, let me go back one. 48. I'm reading from the New King James. And I'm going to read for the first 4 verses, then we'll talk about it, and then we'll just kind of work our way through the chapter. So, Jacob is getting ready to bless Joseph's sons. And it starts off, it says, "Now it came to pass after these things that Joseph was told, Indeed, your father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Jacob was told, Look, your son Joseph is coming to you. And Israel strengthened himself and sat up on the bed." Isn't that funny how it jumps from one verse they'll say Jacob and the next verse they say Israel, but they're talking about the same person. Okay. And so verse 3, "Then Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz." It's also another term for Bethel, "in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said to me, Behold, I will make you fruitful, multiply you, and I will make of you a multitude of people, and give you this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession." So, God appeared to him at Luz, and it's also the term for Bethel. Remember Bethel? Bethel? Remember what it means? House of God. House of God, that's right. And so I find it amazing in the different languages. Luz, I didn't take the time to look that up, so I know it represents Bethel, which we know as house of God. But in Spanish, Luz is light. And I find that amazing. That, when we talk about the house of God, we're talking about these things, and in another language, that very word, Luz, means light. Okay? And so, I don't know, some things I think about, okay? And so, and Jacob is remembering this encounter with the Lord, and especially he's coming to the end of his life. It's going to be time, soon he's going to be passing, and he knows this, and so, the older we get, we all get more reflective as we get older. When you come down to the end, you get really reflective. And it made me think about, I received a phone call a couple weeks ago for someone that I had the privilege of leading to Christ 42 years ago in California. And his name was Kerry Maver. And he's already passed. He called me like 3 weeks ago. And over the time, and he's here now. He lived here now. And but 40 years goes by, and he was busy, and I was busy, and life just gets beyond us. And all of a sudden he called, and he said, "Ron, this is Kerry." I said, "Well, Kerry?" And then and I could tell his voice was weak, but it was him. I could tell it was him. And he said, "I just had to talk to you." And I said, "Okay, what do you need to talk about?" He said, "Well, I've got a tumor in me about the size of a small puppy, and it's growing fast. It's already wrapped around my spine, and it's just growing up my spine heading to my brain. So they've only given me a couple of months, no more than 6 months. They say 2 to 6 months, okay?" I said, "Well, I'd like to get with you. We can have a conversation." So we talked on the phone. He said, we can talk right now. So we spent about 3 hours on the phone, and he was talking about how he came to Christ, when all that had transpired over the years, and the ministry, and he's just reflecting on all this stuff. Well, that's what Jacob's doing, that same kind of thing. Well, anyway, Kerry had we worked together in the office. He was somebody I was sharing Christ with in the office that I worked at. And he didn't work directly for me, but I was kind of had a supervisory position of watching over him, because his boss was somewhere else, and he always told me, Ron, you just kind of keep an eye on him, make sure he's doing what he's supposed to do. And it was all working out, okay. We had this conversation that we were working, and we'd have a conversation. He'd ask things about the Lord, and I'd share them, did the plan of salvation, the whole thing. And one day he just said, I could just see it on his face. And it just felt like, oh, the Lord is speaking to you. And he said, we need to talk. And I was too busy. I said, Carrie, we can't do this right now. Oh, I don't know if I can hold this together much longer. And I said, tell you what. The trash cans need to get empty. I know that's not our normal job, but will you take the trash cans out, go out back, and it's that big dumpster? Yeah, and I said, empty the trash cans in the dumpster. And I suggest you get down on your knees right there, because I think you got an appointment with Jesus on the other side of that dumpster. And so people later said, you didn't say that. Yeah, I did. Because I knew the Lord was dealing with them. And he stopped there, maybe he was gone for like 10 minutes, and he came in, and it was like somebody plugged him into a light socket. He was just glowing with Christ, just radiating with all of that. He said, I found Jesus, and I know him, and now he said, and he came alive for the Lord, and lived his life for the Lord, and all these years have gone by. And so anyway, we were hoping to get together. He called me, had planned to meet with him on the Thursday. And he said to me, I'm feeling really bad today. Can we, maybe do it next week? Give me a week to kind of get to feeling better. He said, I still got, they say 2 to 6 months. And so anyway, that was Thursday, and that following Tuesday, he went home to be with the Lord. So I didn't get that time with him. I just got the time on the phone with him. But made me think about it. I'm studying for this. You see that reflectiveness, and he wanted to have those conversations about all that time with the Lord. And it wasn't that he was all anxious. He just said, I don't see how non-Christians can deal with all this stuff. But I am just resting in the fact I'm getting ready to see him face to face. And yeah, he could hear his sickness, but he had an excitement about I'm going, I'm doing it real soon. And so I kind of see that in what we're doing here tonight, that Joseph is he's sick, he's calling his family, he's going to talk, he hasn't really he didn't really know his grandsons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And so in this whole time period, he's calling them together and wants to talk to them. So in verse 5, he says, and now your 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. And this story's going to get real interesting. And so, as Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. Now, there's a story here. I don't know how well you remember it. Do you remember the plan that Simeon and Reuben, Simeon came up with? Reuben and Simeon, the reason they said he was blind, they came up with this idea. This goes back to Genesis chapter 34 when we did this about their sister Dinah. Remember she was raped?
Yeah.
Remember?
The thing to kill the guy.
So they came up with this idea. They made a partnership with all the men. Remember this story?
Yeah.
And then he said, well, you go have this partnership, we're going to have to circumcise y'all. And so they did that. They put them at their weakest point, and then they killed every last woman. He's making reference to this because in that position, they're still a part of the 12 tribes. But they lost their position.
They can't be leaders.
They can't be leaders, okay? And what we're getting ready to see, he has taken those 2 grandsons of his and putting those into the slot where Reuben and Simeon used to be. I find that amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what he's talking about there. It says, Reuben and Simeon shall be mine. It says, Reuben and Simeon were the first and second born of Israel. Jacob receives the two sons of Joseph as adopted into the family at the highest level.
You know, and all this here time, I keep, you know, as you go on through studies, I keep going, where does this Manasseh come from? There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, now in the stories, there's two Manassehs, okay?
Okay.
This is the original one, okay? The other one was a bad king. It was not good. Okay? That's a different story, okay?
This is really the only penalty that these boys paid, really.
They lost their position.
But that was a big penalty.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a big penalty. And so,
They also lost the right to have the Messiah come through them.
that's right. See, that's exactly right. The Messiah could not come through those two lines,
Oh, you're right.
and so that's why it came through Judah.
Yeah.
Okay, because they lost position, and then Judah moved up. But here you have Jacob taking these two grandsons. Okay, and if I can do this, Manasseh. Ephraim. Remember all the meetings for all the names? We went through all of them. I don't want to leave these two out of. I don't want to leave these two out of the picture. I mean, we went through all of that.
Remember what they were?
No. I can't even remember all of it. You have to go look it all up and do a lot of work. But Manasseh, that name really means cause to forget. To forget. They take the word literally to forget, but it's the other day causing to forget. Causing to forget what? Why he named them that. And these are Hebrew words. Okay, both these are Hebrew words. He one of those boys, because remember his wife's Egyptian. These kids are half Egyptian. And so Egypt is, you know, he wanted to make sure that they understood who they were. He didn't give them any Egyptian names. He gave them Hebrew names. So he took the word and that's causing to forget, and said, I'm going to name him Manasseh. Causing to forget what? All the pain that I've endured of this life. I got a little boy now in my life. My wife has given me a baby, and for the first time, I'm feeling joy that I haven't felt in a long, long time. So that's what he named that baby. Causing to forget. That's just kind of cool, I think. Huh? And the second one comes along. That's an easy one. I want to try to. Ephraim means fruitfulness. And it all ties to
It means double fruit.
double fruitful. That same idea. Actually, we're going to get into that double thing here as we get going here into this whole thing, because there's a whole double portion that's coming down. So in this understanding of this fruitfulness, and that's what it was. He, not only this first would cause me to forget, and we're going into some fruitfulness because of all that God has done and used, and all the fruitfulness and how to save the people. That whole storyline kind of he ties it up into Ephraim. And this is gets very interesting here as you get going in this. Is as God's gonna, well, I don't want to tell the punchline until we get down to it. As God's moving this and moving, Jacob's doing all this stuff, and we're going to see that in a moment that Joseph's going to get a little upset with him. That, like, no, the old man, you got this wrong. You're getting senile. But Jacob didn't miss a beat. God's hand was working on all of this. And so as we see this, they said they shall be mine. And in this whole thing of be mine, it gets a little confusing at times because in different places of the book, in the Bible, it talks about the 12 tribes. Well, and it talks about 12, and all of a sudden they'll say, well, this time they didn't use Manasseh in this one, they used Joseph in this story, and yet there's still 12. How does this play out? Because really there was 14 of them.
Yeah, I used to get really confused.
And so the stories, depending on how they're making the point, used to call the 12 out. And so at times it gets a little confusing in the Old Testament saying, oh, wait a minute, how's this one? Well, anyway, we're talking about they shall be mine. Jacob's adoption of Manasseh and Ephraim explains why these are 12 tribes, often listed in different combinations. Because of this adoption, well, if you count Joseph as in the thing, then there's 14. If you count him as not being a part of it anymore, and there's a story for that, because the 12 tribes, the tribe of Joseph is Manasseh and Ephraim, okay? And there's the places in the Bible where they talk about the tribe of Joseph, and after all of this, they now talk about the house of Joseph. They don't call it a tribe anymore. And so, I mean, you got all these little things that are happening. But to make it play, the two boys, the two tribes, were considered a half a tribe and a half a tribe, making it one. Okay, so there's still 12 tribes, even though you now end up with 13 bodies, and if you bring Joseph in, then that complicates it even more. But they were only considered half a tribe making one tribe, okay, between the two halves. And so, okay, let's read on. I won't get ahead of what I want to talk about until I get there. Okay. So, verse 6 says, your offspring whom you begat after them shall be yours, and they will be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. But as for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way, where there was but a little distance to go to Ephrath, and I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And so then Israel saw Joseph's sons and said, who are these? And Joseph said to his father, they are my sons whom God has given me in this place. And he said, please bring them to me and I will bless them. And verse 10 says, and now the eyes of Israel were dim with age. So that's what happens when we can't see. I'm understanding that one. And so, it says, now the eyes of Israel were dim with age, so that he could not see. Then Joseph brought them near, and he kissed them, and he embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, but in fact God has always shown me your offspring. And so Joseph brought them from beside his knee, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. Now notice this, he is now second in command in all of Egypt. As this is playing out, his dad's getting ready to bless his sons. And then we see Joseph not only, he basically is saying he prostrated himself before his father. So it's quite a picture, isn't it? So Joseph brought them from beside his knees, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. And notice that Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with the left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them to him. In other words, he's setting this thing up to make sure that Manasseh, the oldest son, is going to be in place where Dad will put his right hand on him, and the left hand will go on Ephraim. Well, it came time to pray. Dad, instead of doing this, he does this. And his right hand goes on Ephraim, and the left goes on Manasseh.
And there carries on the younger list.
You go. And it carries on that. Yeah, let's wait to see if it was okay. This whole thing is still moving forward, that same idea. That's why I find that amazing.
Another generation.
It is another generation
Or the
where the younger is serving, or the elder is serving the younger. And here we see it again. But Joseph wasn't happy with it. And so,
none of them have been happy.
well, no, Jacob puts, but Jacob puts the favored hand on the second board despite his effort. He literally, the way Joseph was getting them lined up, I can't see, so we got to get him lined up to the right hand, so he'll just go out and do this.
We weren't mistakes made here.
And Dad didn't say a word. Time to pray. Instead of doing this, He does this.
He knew what he was doing.
Absolutely, he knew what he was doing. There was no chance going on
He knew
here.
what Joseph was doing too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure he did. I'm sure he
I'm
knew
sure
it
he
was
was-
riling him up.
He was probably reflective, so.
So Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand. The right hand in the Bible always has the idea of favored position. It always is that. Okay, who's got Bibles and don't mind reading? Huh? Okay, Jackie, look up Exodus 15:6. Mark, Psalm 16:11. George, do you want to do one? Psalm 20, chapter 20, verse 6. Say 26. Do that. And one more.
Here you go, I got it for you.
Okay, Hebrews 1 and 2. So this whole idea, the right hand in the Bible is always the idea of favored position. Because generally speaking, the right hand is the hand of strength and skill. Yeah, it's that, it's the hand. And, are you there yet, Jackie? 15:6.
Well, and also in Psalms and a lot in the Old Testament, I see almost prophesied where the right hand.
Oh,
provides strength
this
and-
is just a little sampling
yeah,
of
and
this.
Christ stabbed
We,
his
we
right
could,
hand
we could
down.
fill up this board
Right,
with
yeah.
verses like that, yeah. And it's amazing.
Ready?
Uh-huh.
The right hand of the Lord has become glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, has dashed the enemy in pieces, and in the greatness of your excellence. Oh, that's 7.
Yeah, that's okay. I was talking about the right hand, the power, and all that. It's all based in the right hand. Okay? So when you want your oldest son to get the blessing, huh? You know, the blessing, if you notice the verbiage, the words were identical said to both of them. But the power came because he was touched with the right hand. And so, Psalm 16:11.
16:11, you will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore.
Yes. Well, see? And again, as Mark has said, as I looked it up, I thought, I just want to do a little sampling of this. Take a few from the Old Testament and one from the New Testament. But this whole idea of the right hand is powerful. And so we see this, okay? The next one, Psalms 26. That's you, George.
I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving strength of his right hand.
With his saving strength of his right hand. Do you see the power, the understanding that goes into? No wonder he wanted his oldest boy. Hey, I want him in touch with that. What are you doing, Dad? Huh? But Dad knew it's going to be, as we get going, we're going to get another glimpse of this, what God was doing. Jacob knew exactly what God was doing. Isn't it amazing that we see these different things like this with the right hand? And we're going to get into, we're touching on a little bit tonight. Next week, we'll really get into it. About what we're going to see. Jacob blesses all of his children before he goes. And the power in the words. And what was said in the blessings. And everyone, it played out in every one of those children's lives.
That's what always amazed me about this. That and the naming of kids. I'm like, how the heck did they?
Going through, yeah.
Exactly.
They really thought about it.
Oh,
Well, and it was prophetic.
meant
I mean, it came
Yeah.
through. It's like God had to hold them.
oh, well, yeah. But remember when we did the scriptures about all the names? And all the way through generations, and you take the meanings of the names, and there's a message in there about salvation. You do have that with you?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's powerful. And you know what? People would say, think, well, no, I chose that name for my child. Huh?
Even
And yet, when you look at the bigger overall picture, God was in control of every bit of it. Yeah, that's powerful stuff. We lose a lot in understanding today the power of blessing there is. In the word that we do, and you pray. Yeah, we don't do enough of it.
we don't do it at all. do
No.
we?
You know, I was later in ministry when I got to the understanding, but I did for the last, for years when the kids were home. But I finally understood when the light went on, when I had my aha moment, before my kids would go out the door to school, I'd say, Norma, come here. And I'd lay hands on them. Bless them, Lord, as they go out this door. Bless them, Lord, as they're in their classrooms. Be with them and that no harm comes to them. And, they're special and you have created them. And prayers like that. And I think we should do that. But we get so caught up in our lives and we don't think about all of that stuff and we don't do it.
Certainly should do more of it.
Well, yeah, we should do more of it.
I know
And there's at times that I
we
have-
pray for our kids, I know I do, but
And I don't do it.
never actually put my hands on and prayed over them.
Yeah, I did in the beginning, but I did that when I had my aha moment, I wouldn't let them go out that door without laying hands on them and praying for them. And you know what? They remember that.
Probably why
They don't remember what I said, but they said, Dad, I always remember you prayed for us before we went out the door. Yeah. And it should be like that. I don't do it every time I'm even here, but there's times after the end of preaching sometimes when I just feel led to do it. I'll close service with a blessing on the congregation. Yeah? It's the same idea. We don't do that enough.
Just the fact that you took the time too to pray for your kids and the care and whatever you said that day, I'm sure words are powerful.
Yeah, that's the
Kids,
point.
Yeah, even more.
You know,
So,
the old saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt you. That's a lie. Words do hurt you. Huh? Huh?
And you know,
Yeah, they do. Okay. Where are we at?
It's here in these 3 books.
No, if you can't find it, Jackie, that's okay. Oh, good for you. Bring it here then. And so,
You come get it.
I'm going off camera.
That's what you kids for, make them.
Yes. Here it is for the generation, and it's a lot in the Bible. The Hebrew: Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. That's quite a list in a long period of time. But when you take those names and you put the English definition of what they would be, it says this: man appointed mortal sorrow, the blessed God shall come down teaching, and his death shall bring the despairing rest or comfort. You can't make this stuff up.
No kidding.
That's divine. And yet every one of them would say, I named my child this, That's amazing.
The prophetic throughout the Bible.
It's all like
got
that. Thank you, Jackie.
Huh?
That's amazing stuff. So we're seeing the whole thing in the blessing that Jacob's getting ready to do, and this whole thing is playing out. So,
You want me to read Hebrews?
I do. I almost forgot you.
No.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead and do it.
Okay.
I almost forgot you.
God, who at sundry times and in divers manners spake in the time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the world.
And he sat down where?
Oh. It's right, probably the right side of it. I'm sure I'm trying.
Doesn't say where.
Yeah.
Oh, it does in verse, it does put it down, at the end of
Yeah, I
verse 3,
got
he
it.
sat down.
I'm gonna change the verses.
Yeah, see, I got that. That's interesting, isn't
Let me read another version, if that's probably
it? That's okay.
good, very good. Okay. God, who at various times and in various ways spoke in the times past to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, through whom also he made the worlds. That's 1 and 2.
Okay, read 3.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There we go. Who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person, and upholding all things by the word, by his power, when he had by himself purged our sin and sat down at the right hand of the majesty on high.
So he sat down at the right hand of God. That's the place of power. There's a great message in that. At the right hand of God. And that's where Christ sits today. Yeah, and that's right. That's why all the power and all that applies to him. He sits at the right hand of the majesty on high. Amazing stuff. So verse 12, let's read that again. So Joseph brought them from beside his knees, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right and toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near. Then Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head. In other words, he crossed his arms, is what he did, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, guiding his hands knowingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. Now, and he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has fed me all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil. And that angels in the capital A is referring, you see the angel of the Lord, we're making a reference to Christ, the appearance of Christ, okay? We would call that Christophany, an appearance of Christ. And so, bless the lads, let my name be named upon them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Now notice all that he did is he had his hands on this, and he's blessing them all. The same words, but the one that the power goes to is the one that is under his right hand, Ephraim. Now later, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Turn another one of these. See, you got it. Okay. Remember, it hasn't happened yet. It's going to be way in the future. We need to talk about what's going on. Reuben and Simeon lost their position of 1 and 2. Judah moves up. And that's the tribe that Christ was born through. That's what Bill pointed out. They lost that position with the tribe. Then we see this Exodus blessing today that's coming upon Ephraim. Remember, in the future, the kingdom's going to get split. You had the northern kingdom, and then you have Judah. Israel split with 2 kings. Okay, this one's an easy one to know what tribe it is. What tribe is this one?
The other 10.
Ephraim.
Well, it was 10 of the tribes, right? But Ephraim was basically the strongest one.
Yeah, that's right. But all over this whole thing, this northern king, this is part of what we call, and I'm getting off on a tangent now, the 10 lost tribes of Israel. The northern kingdom's going to eventually disappear. The only thing left is Judah. But I find that through all the story of this, the two that's getting the blessing is this one and this one.
Well, Manasseh went with Judah too, right?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
But they were just about almost wiped out by the other tribes
Right,
before then.
right. But you're gonna see that this whole thing, they were all but wiped out, yeah. And we're gonna see that as we get going here, that there was a special calling on this guy. And what God has to say about it.
But is that a good thing? That's kind of a bad thing that he went to the north for, right?
Well, that's how, it's all in God's what he knows,
Yeah.
okay?
All right.
So, he was guiding his hands knowingly. Israel knew exactly what he intended to do. He deliberately chose the secondborn to receive a greater blessing than the firstborn. So, 48:15 and 16. Then, as he blessed him and said, God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has fed me all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, let my name be upon them, the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Now, as he's praying this, and he is saying this, he gave both boys the same blessing, but the one's going to get the greater blessing because it's under his right hand. And so, I like what he said, the God who has fed me all my life long to this day. Jacob's testimony, notice he doesn't say, I've earned all this. I was such a great guy and I did all these things and God blessed me like this. The whole story of this, Jacob's testimony was a testimony of grace. No personal merit. I didn't deserve it. He didn't get
Religion
in.
says shepherd, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He shepherded them all the day. That's actually the literal translation. The shepherd. Yeah. Okay. He is not saying how faithful he was to God, but how faithful God was to him. That's a powerful verse. And that whole taking care of the idea of, he took care of me all my life. The literal translation, they translated it as I read that in the New King James, but the literal version to translate that is exactly what you said. He shepherded me. The guiding hand of God was there. And then he talks about the angel with the capital A, that's Christ. That appeared to him. See, on the time, remember when he had the ladder and the angels were going up and down the ladder, and he had that whole vision, and he got a vision of Christ.
I like how he says that the angel who has redeemed me.
Yeah, that's the angel, that's Christ.
Same one that's redeemed us.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So, as we see this, and this is playing out, I have verses here. I won't go over them all because I won't get caught up, to do all this. But if he blessed Joseph, Israel gave the same blessing to both sons, but the son of the right hand received a greater portion of the blessing. As to see Isaiah 7:8, 7:17, and 11:13, all talks about the right hand and the blessings that come from the right hand. The God who has fed me all life long to this day, this testimony. And Jacob answers Joseph's objections in 17 through 20. I want to read those and then we'll talk about them. And it says this, now when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. So he took hold of his father's hand to remove it. That's bull. Earlier, he's laying down prostrate before his father, showing the reverence and respect to say God's doing his blessing. He understood the power and what God was doing and all that was there. Now he's up trying to take his dad's hands off that boy's head and put it where it should be. Where he thought it should be. Yeah, exactly right. And it says, so he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. And his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations. So he blessed him that day, saying, by you Israel will bless, saying, may God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh, And thus he set Ephraim before Manasseh. So, it's done. Mark, can I get you to look up one more scripture for me?
Sure.
This would be an easy one. Jeremiah 31:9. It's an amazing thing that what we see transpired. And we see that when Jacob spoke, Joseph left it alone. You must understand there's more at play here. Not just about what Joseph's been through in his whole life to see how God's hand was when his dad's basically telling him, I know what I'm doing. There's a reason that this is being done. He backs off. Okay. And so,
Jeremiah 31:9.
yeah, go ahead and read that.
And, excuse me, they shall come with weeping, and with supplications I will lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way in which they shall not stumble. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn.
This is God talking. This is God talking through the prophet Jeremiah and talking about Israel. And in the line, we go Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, or we go Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. You think of them as a person, not the nation, okay? Next in line is Ephraim. God called him. That's my firstborn from what? Israel. Even though it wasn't, that's his grandson, but he adopted it and said, no, I'm claiming him as my own. This is quite a chapter in the Bible, this one we're doing tonight. Yeah.
So God's moving him up to the top, basically.
Exactly. And we're watching this thing play out. Yeah. That's amazing stuff, isn't it? And he's my firstborn, but it's actually Israel's grandson. And we see how this plays out.
Because that adoption made it.
Well, still not quite over yet. If you want to do anything, we have a couple more verses to do.
It kind of, I don't know, even, Joseph didn't have to agree to the adoption, it was just done.
He had no choice in this thing. Yeah.
So Joseph didn't agree to the adoption, it was just done.
No.
That's right.
So let's read 21 and 22, and we're going to finish the chapter, okay? And Israel said to Joseph, behold, I am dying, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to you one portion, now this is getting really interesting, to you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and my bow. Now this is playing out in a strange way. Let me go back to the right, put it in the front of this thing. One more, Jackie?
Yeah.
Genesis 34:25, and then I'll have you jump over to the next chapter.
Okay.
Get ready to read this. What he's talking about. The one portion, if you take the words, okay? The one portion, and that idea of the one portion is the idea of a shoulder or back. You think, well, it doesn't make sense, but if you translate that literally, the word for that portion, that shoulder or back, remember the story of Shechem? Read that verse.
It now came to pass on the third day when they were in pain that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came boldly upon the city and killed all the males.
Okay, 35:22.
Okay. And it happened when Israel dwelt in that land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and
Remember that story?
Israel heard about it.
Yeah. So you have two sins that really transpired here. Remember when Reuben lay with his Jacob's concubine? That's just forbidden to do. Okay. And then you have the story about Reuben and Simeon making that agreement arrangement that we're going to merge with you guys, but you guys have to be circumcised. They all agreed to it, and then they killed them all. At the end of this verse, this gets a little stranger yet.
Wasn't it Reuben too that ended up stopping and killing the?
Yes. And we got some good things that come out. I mean, you got Levi. They ended up through all of this stuff, or Simeon, and that whole thing ended up being used of God. But here, guess what makes this strange? Is I've given to you one portion above your brothers. In other words, how it's playing out. Remember, each of them only have half a kingdom, or they're half of a tribe. So each of these tribes is a half and a half, making a whole. But Grandpa said, this is what Bill made reference to, that I'm giving to those two a double portion. See, they should only have half amount of land that each of the others got, but they both got a double portion, so that actually gave them the exact the same amount of land that the others had. Are you with me? Yeah? Do you understand what I just said?
Yeah.
And so and how all this is played out. And what he's telling Joseph as this plays out, is, moreover, I have given to you one portion of your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and my bow. But he's making a reference to the one portion in Shechem and that whole story, how they killed them all. But Jacob ended up with the deed to the land that he's now giving to Joseph. That's an interesting story, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's how the chapter ends.
So do you
Yeah.
know what time frame was it, what, 1300 BC, somewhere around there, 1100
Probably.
BC?
Yeah. We did look that up once, but I can't remember it.
What was that, Bill?
But is it 1300 or 1100 BC? It was a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
But the curious part about it is like he's making these claims, and so I mean the book of Genesis was written, and you know they had scripture
Yeah.
long before before Solomon fell after Solomon, and they became a different nation. I
Yeah.
mean, this was a prophecy that was
It was prophecy, yeah.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before it
Yes,
happened.
yes.
You know,
And playing out, well, we see the same thing in the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel is so precise in the kingdoms that came and the order that they were in. Somebody, if the non-believers said, oh, this can't be, that's too precise. What they did is they just wrote it after the fact when all this had happened, and they just backdated it. You have that same idea, that same accusation, because these things are playing out in the miraculous, down to the T, and they were said way before they played out. That's exactly right, Bill. That's amazing stuff, I think.
those books were sitting in the temple.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Daniel's, yeah, that's amazing, but this is.
it's the same kind of
That's
thing.
amazing, yeah.
It's the same as that kind of thing. That's exactly right. You're exactly
I
right.
find that kind of knowledgeable.
It's mind blowing to me. And what I think when people say, well, that's just an irrelevant book, or that Bible, it's not, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, then that just strengthens my faith.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. So next week, we're going to end it here for tonight.
It's like you say, you can't make that stuff up.
No, you can't make it up.
I think even in the rewriting it, they wouldn't have had it, there would have been error
Yeah,
in the rewriting it.
Should have
As you said, in
been.
backdating it.
yeah,
They
no.
wouldn't have been able to get it right.
No, exactly.
That precisely.
And down to the stuff that we're talking about, minuteness of detail. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So, next week, we're picking up, or we're leaving off, where he's blessed the son. He knows he's coming to the end of life. Life is coming. Jacob's getting ready, his last words to each one of his sons. And that's going to be the next chapter. And I find this one real interesting, too. And so we'll pick up 49 next week. Hope you got something out of that tonight. It was a great time. Let's close with the word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for your word. How amazed we stand in awe, Lord, of how you have, when you wrote this and you said these things and how they've played out in history, exactly correct. And yet they were prophesied hundreds of years, in some cases thousands of years before. And so, Lord, we just look to you and just ask us, Lord, that as you work in our lives, and give us direction on what we should be up and about and doing for you. And just open doors for us that need to be opened and close doors that need to be closed. And just most importantly, Lord, use us to bring glory to your name. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. Amen. That was a great conversation, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.